Okay, deep breath. It's been a hot minute since I've done this. Hello, welcome back to the Vanesstradiol podcast. I think my last one was in May of this year, 2025, and a lot of shit's gone down here in this wonderful backwards ass country that we live in. I don't even know if I want to get into politics in this episode because everywhere you go, you hear all about politics here, this, that, and the other, and so I don't really want to get into the current events other than, hey, it's a hot dumpster fire. Yesterday was the the second No Kings protest, for which I did not go. I'm a mother. I don't have it in me to get arrested. So, and being what I am here, I'm kind of a target. So, I wanted to talk more about packing up all your shit and leaving everything behind. So, if you're not familiar, or if this is your first time listening to it, hi, I'm Vanesstradiol. I am a 44-year-old transgender woman currently living in Lacey, Washington. I moved to Washington from Ohio in March of 2025 this year. The 19th, which is, what is today? Anyways, it's the 19th. So today is my 7-month anniversary of living in Washington State. Before this, I never lived anywhere other than Ohio, specifically in Northeast Ohio. I had traveled before, but I'd never actually got up and left for real. I like to say that Ohio is kind of like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. And that's been proven time and time again by people I know that have left the state only to find themselves back in Ohio. My goal is to not have that happen. It's one of those over my dead body things while I move back to Ohio. I go back there occasionally because I do have a son and he lives there. My visitation allows me to see him in person once every 6 months. So I'll be going back in December, and it's nice to see. I still have a few friends there. But I wanted to talk about like the dichotomy of living in two completely different areas of the country and the trip itself. The amount of kindness I had on my trip was mind-blowing. So I first decided that it was time for me to get out of Ohio with the election last year when the Tangerine was voted in once again, and I knew that Ohio was not a safe place for trans people. There's already a bathroom ban in place for schools and colleges. The best place for me to actually find a job would have been at a college, but I wouldn't have been able to use the bathroom, and I'm really not interested in second-class citizen status. Every time I left the house was just scary. Like, here I get sometimes confused looks because I am a tall transgender woman, or just a tall woman in general. Tall women tend to get looked at because we stand out in a crowd. And there, it was people... It wasn't confused looks. It was, I'm going to stab you in the face looks, or I'm going to follow you to your car. And after my failed run for office, which kind of put me in the public eye there, Ohio isn't home. There's an ongoing trans genocide in this country that I've spoken about in the past. I've written about it, and some people will deny it's happening, but it's true. All of these laws being passed to erase our existence, and specifically the ones being passed to take away our health care, those are designed to kill us. For a lot of us, my body doesn't produce hormones naturally. About a year and a half ago, I had an issue with prescription where, 2 years ago almost now, an issue with the prescription where Rite Aid filled, it was only 20% of the potency of the estrogen I was supposed to be getting, so I got thrown into like a sudden menopause state and frankly lost my mind, attempted suicide, and wound up in a mental hospital, which, let me tell you, those don't help at all. Maybe for some people, but yeah, that was the worst week of my life that I can think of. Anyways, this autistic girl bounces all over the place. That's the ADHD side of my ADHD. So forgive me for bouncing, but bouncing is what I do. See, the podcast listeners are like, what are going on with all the YouTube videos? YouTube, uh, YouTube videosers? No, the YouTube viewers can see my massive A cups doing a little bit of a jiggle jiggle. Don't worry, my videos never be monetized anyways. So, my dog just heard something. I don't know what she heard. Could be anything. Could be nothing. Could be. Food sounds good. Anyways, I have no idea where it was. Oh yeah, the transgenocide. How could I forget? When we lose access to our hormones, especially those of us who have had operations so that our bodies no longer produce hormones, it can lead to a slow, painful death. And that's what it is. Oh no, it wasn't that. That's a ship's notification, not a delivery notification. Don't mind me. It can be a death sentence to not have access to our hormones, because a lot of us, when we transition, it's a way of us to save our lives. I could not go back to how it was before. There's a common phrase in my community that says death before detransition. And yeah, that's me. I would rather die. I don't have that strong of a will to live in the first place. But backing up to where I was, I bounce all over the place. The joys of being, the joys of the autistic brain, especially since transitioning, since I actually have hormones that make me feel now, and I am even more scatterbrained, which I kind of love in a way, but causing issues at work, which I can't get into here, but yay, discrimination. Anyways, transgenocide, moving across country. I needed to get out of Ohio. Ohio is not a safe state. While Ohio, the people themselves are very purple, it's gerrymandered to smithereens, essentially. And it is just deep red with the government. And they fancy themselves to be the Florida and the Texas of the North. So having run for office there, having been kind of in the direct view of the Secretary of State, who I'm sure does not like my name. Actually, he probably doesn't even remember who I am anymore. Who am I kidding? But I gave him headaches for a while when I ran for office and was disqualified. I decided to move to a safer place in the country. I could not afford to leave the country. As much as I would like to move out of the country, it's just the costs involved in that are absolutely prohibitive. Even Canada. Ideally, I'd find my way to Norway or something like that, a country that actually likes people like me. So I decided to find the safest place in the country. And I had a few options, Washington, naturally, Oregon, Minnesota, Illinois, and Colorado. I've been to Minnesota before. It's just too damn cold. I do love Governor Waltz, but it's too close to Ohio, too. I wanted out of the Midwest. Same with Illinois. Illinois is better for trans people, but it is landlocked. And, technically, yeah, Chicago's on the water and you can get to Canada from there, but it's still not far enough away. So that left me to Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. Colorado, again, landlocked, though it is very blue, and trans rights are pretty well protected there, especially surgeries. Oregon's gorgeous, but I chose Washington because Washington is a border state. So here I am. I now live in what's called the South Sound. If you look at Washington, there's this little dip where Puget Sound comes down, and Olympia is right there. That's where I live. I live in Lacey, which is quote unquote suburb Olympia, though Olympia is really not that big. To put in like Ohio terms, Olympia reminds me of Kent, a lot of Kent. A little bit bigger of a downtown, but the buildings are similar size. There's just a little bit more of them. And obviously there's Capitol building there. And then towns around here, Tacoma is to my northeast. For those in Ohio, Tacoma reminds me of Akron. It's very Akron adjacent. And then I would say Seattle would put it closer to Cleveland. Seattle is a little bit bigger than Cleveland, but kind of how the sprawling metro. So, because, us Midwesterners love to put things into context that we know. Yeah. But I absolutely adore Olympia. The people here are extremely friendly. Um, some places are better than others. Lacey is a little bit more conservative. I first moved to Tumwater, which is very conservative, to the fact that their schools send out texts about boys playing in girls' sports, which I'm not even going to get into that stupid argument. But Olympia, like, you drive around town, there are pride flags everywhere, queer people everywhere. I would say one of the largest challenges the city has is finding homes for the unhoused. There is a very large homeless population here, and like so many populations out there, they are just forgotten about and downtrodden upon. And knowing how little money it would take to solve the homelessness crisis in this country, just, I'm not a fan of capitalism, but I know that the presence of homeless people makes some people uncomfortable there. People have to go somewhere. People have to live somewhere. And honestly, I'd rather be in the PNW than Ohio. Probably be even better down south in like California or something where it's drier, but that's me showing my privilege. I have no idea how that is. I could not handle, I had a brief fear of homelessness after I moved here because I wasn't making enough money to pay for my apartment. But luckily, I built up a friend network, and I now live in a house with a friend of mine. Boy, am I bouncing all over the place. This has to be so infuriating to listen to, unless you are neurodivergent as well, and then you get it, because this episode is just me info dumping, because info dumping is what I do. I'm single. If I had a girlfriend, I'd info dump on her, but I don't. So it's you guys listening to this, whoever actually does listen or watch this, listen to or watch this. I have to do it somewhere, and this might be educational for people. So education's good, I think. Maybe. I don't know. If at least yeah. So moving across country, to back up some, I was in Ohio, struggling in Ohio. Finding money there was hard. Finding employment there was hard. People didn't like to hire trans people. I was a real estate photographer, as you may know, and when I came out, my business all went, it disappeared. Some longtime clients wouldn't take my calls anymore. And I was probably making maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year to absolutely nothing. I went like a month and a half without having any income, and luckily GoFundMe exists and kind people exist, and I was able to at least cover bills. But I would hear things such as agents didn't want to hire me because I'm bad for optics. And yeah, that's kind of insulting. I'm not going to lie. Because I'm really fucking good at what I do, and the people that do hire me recognize that. But bigotry is a powerful thing. It really is. And there's no real rhyme or reason to it. It just is what it is, which is horrible. Excuse me. I could probably edit this out, but I probably won't. I think the only editing I really do on my videos anymore is just fix the sound quality. So there's a hum in the background of this video. It's probably my computer. So, and here I am looking at my cleavage. I have cleavage now, guys. Look at that. Like, my boobs have actually grown a little bit. I don't think I'm quite a B yet, but nice solid A's and peppered. Trans girls, look up Pepper for your bras, because they make big bands of small cups. This is a 40A. I also have a 42A. I think the 40A fits better. So, yeah. Bras. Stuff that I never thought I'd have to think about, and here I am. Yeah, because I have to wear them at work because the patriarchy. So my income in Ohio had completely dried up. I would get work here and there. I had a fairly loyal client base, and though after some things, when I learned someone is not safe, where there's someone that will say one thing to me and then do something else, I will cut them out of my life, and that includes clients. So people that I found out, I had one client who I did a lot of work for, and I loved the houses I shot for him because he did a very good job flipping. But shortly after the election, he started going on about "Make America Great Again," and I can't do that. I refuse to work for somebody who celebrates erasing my existence, because that's not fun. That's not cool. Don't erase my existence. So as time went on, and as I was starting to even job hunt in Washington, I was losing more and more clients in Ohio. So it was getting more and more difficult to get by. I had an amazing landlord there. I don't know if Brenda listens to this, but she was a former client. She had gotten out of real estate, but she had the house that she grew up in Massillon, Ohio, and she offered it to me to rent from her for $800 a month for an entire house. And this technically a 3-bedroom. I didn't use the upstairs, but like a 3-bedroom with a washer dryer and a full bath and a kitchen, all that stuff. And that was amazing because I had moved out of my ex's house in June of 2024 and wound up there. So, sorry, my friend Veronica just texted me. Hi, Veronica, if you're listening. You just texted me. So, and my ring light just dropped out of nowhere. What are you doing? Why'd you do that? Don't try. Stay. Stay. Okay? No.
No, that's a true dad.
This is what you get for buying a $5 ring light. So pretty much all of my podcasts that I've recorded and you've seen video from have had that ring light. So I guess I can't really judge too much, but it's one of those things where you like twist it and in order to keep it up, but it tends to kind of fall down on its own. So, and I don't use it much. So just stay there, please. Thank you. Love you. So yeah, moving to Washington. It was time for me to move. One of the primary reasons I moved is, yes, people are like, you left Ohio? Doesn't your kid live in Ohio? Yes, my kid does live in Ohio. I wanted him to have a better chance of growing up with two living parents. And with everything being political vitriol being spewed against trans people in this country, living in a state, especially one where I was in somewhat of the public eye, that is just unsafe for trans people, I knew that moving would be my best bet. It would also be my best bet for finding employment, because finding work in Ohio was just impossible. I had tried. I had applied thousands of places, both in Ohio and with remote jobs. And if you're navigating this job market right now, you get it. The job market's horrible. And compound that by being a transgender, disabled person, and it gets even worse, because I don't lie on the things when they ask if I'm disabled, because I figure if they're not going to select me by checking that disabled box, I don't want to work there anyway. I'm having that problem with where I'm working now as well. So, yay. But, so I decided to leave everything behind. I started job hunting immediately last November. I applied over 300 places, in-person positions in Washington. And I had a few interviews. And one of them, the job I currently have, I had applied in, I think, December or January, and someone in HR had opened my resume and a bunch of others as well, but then didn't flag them for some reason, so they just kind of fell into limbo. And come February, they're like, we had a whole lot more applicants. What happened? And turns out they were there, and I was one of them. So I interviewed from Ohio and got the job and was able to move here. So I had to decide what I was going to bring. I don't know if you've tried looking up the prices of U-Hauls or anything like that. They're expensive. I was looking for just a little box truck with a car dolly that I could tow my car behind it to bring it cross country, and it was something like $4,000. And if there's one thing I don't ever have, it's money, and I certainly didn't have that. So I decided to just try to sell everything I possibly could and just restart my life. I drive a little Fiat 500 convertible, and if you've seen those, there's not a whole lot of room in those. And I had to get myself and my 80-pound dog across the country in it. So to test what I could fit in there, I put the top down and loaded boxes full of everything that I could get in. And then I realized I couldn't even fit luggage in there. So I then put the top back up, took all of my clothing and shoved it in all the little cracks and crevices throughout the car. So like if you looked at the back of the car, you could see like my underwear and dresses and stuff like that squished up against the back glass. And so the entire interior back of the car was full of stuff, and then it spilled down under both seats in the passenger footwells, where that's where I kept my computer and like my really valuable stuff. And then somewhat onto the passenger seat. But my dog had to sit there too, so I had to like kind of cram things around where she could find a way to at least somewhat lay down for the 2,600-mile drive across the country. And I was able to get it all in there. So everything else I tried to sell, I could not. Only thing I sold really, I think, was my TV. And then I sold like my Super Nintendo and 64, some games and stuff like that. But I did not build up much money to move across the country. And I had to do my first month's rent and deposit at my new place in advance in order to even secure that. So once again, I did a GoFundMe, and once again, some amazingly generous people came through, and I was able to just barely, like, by the time I got to Washington, I was down to like my last $20. But I was able to get across country, and that was quite a road trip, because the feelings involved were heavy. I had lived in Ohio for, at that point, over 43 years. I'm 44 now, so it was my entire existence had been in Ohio, specifically Northeast Ohio. I had friends there. At the time, I still had a girlfriend there. My son was there, not related to my former girlfriend. And all of my clientele were there for photography. So, like, I was quite literally, this was a big gamble to just up and leave it all behind, because once I got to Washington, there was no going back. I had nothing to go back to. There was no home for me to go back to in Ohio. There's no job for me to go back to Ohio. There's nothing. That was just me in the car, with no home for that period of time, going across the country, driving across the country in an Italian car, made not to the highest build quality, build standards in Mexico, where they do pretty much all of the Chrysler products, because Fiat builds their Fiats, built. I don't know if they still do anymore in Mexico. And I had had a lot of bad experience with Chrysler products coming quality issues, and this car is no exception. But somehow I made it across country in that little thing. Every night on my drive there, different people paid for a hotel room for my dog and I, which was like, that was so super touching. So I didn't have to sleep in the car. There was no room to move in a car. I couldn't even put the seat back. And then my poor dog was crammed in there with me too, and she had nowhere to move around. And so my first morning, I had lunch with a friend, Zoe, in Illinois. She's a political candidate. And then my second night, I wound up in Wall, South Dakota. I didn't quite make it to Sturgis, but I'd been to Wall as a kid. I remember getting some cowboy boots on Wall when I was like my early teens. And someone paid for a hotel there. And then the drive leaving South Dakota into Montana got hairy. Like, I'm used to driving in blizzard conditions, but it does get exhausting after a while. So it was a blizzard for about 350 miles, and I couldn't see anything in front of me or behind me. I knew there was a semi in front of me because I could barely see its taillights, and I knew there was a semi behind me because I could barely see its headlights. And just driving. In the snow, I was wearing flip-flops, and um, car did it. Like, stop for gas. I even stopped for gas in someplace deep in rural Montana. Went into the bathroom, used the bathroom. No one said anything. So I'm like, oh, maybe I passed better than I thought I did. Then I get shit that reminds me, oh, yeah, no, you don't. And then, so that night I stayed in Spokane. I made it all the way to Spokane. And the next day I drove home to my new home. I remember when I was crossing the country, as soon as I saw the mountains, I knew that I was home. As a little backstory, I've always wanted to live out west my entire life. It was my plan to do it once my son had grown up and moved out of the house. It just wound up happening a lot sooner than I thought. So I adore being in the West. The beauty here, it's not like anything that you see anywhere in Ohio. And that my last day driving across Washington, going through the high desert, it's so absolutely fucking gorgeous, the entire drive. And eventually I got to Western Washington and got to have my first experience with I-5, and any of my Washingtonians know what I'm talking about. I-5 is a nightmare. It's the main route from Olympia through Tacoma and the JBLM military base and then Seattle. And the traffic is it's always stupid. And I've driven everywhere in the country, almost every single state in the 48 contiguous states. Washington drivers are the worst. I can confidently say that Washington drivers are the worst in the country. They're just bad. A cop parked on the side of the road. People will come to a dead stop on the highway because there's a cop just sitting there doing a speed trap. Like, I guess I'm just used to being from Ohio where there's a cop every 45 feet. Washington drivers are not good. It's one of my few gripes about this state. Washington drivers and I-5 are pretty much my main gripes about this state. So, unfortunately, the mountain was not out that day. We like to say, you may have heard of Mount Rainier. It's also called Tahoma. I prefer to call it Tahoma. That's the native name. And it's very shy. If there's any clouds or anything like that, there's this massive, gigantic mountain that you can see all over the place in the state will just disappear. It'll just hide. So when it's out, people here like to say the mountain is out. But I did get to see it shortly after, a few days later. So I remember just driving in, like, thinking, this is my new home. And I don't know anybody here. Other than there's one former, I'm not going to talk about her. And then my old friend Andrew was the only person here that really knew me. He's originally from Alabama, and he moved cross country years ago, and settled in. Andrew, I forget where you live. I'm sorry. Are you in Yelm? If you're listening, I know you're not far from me, but he's the only person here that knew me before transitioning, and he is a staunch ally. He's not someone that will ever dead name me or bring any of that up. We can talk about the past and good times in the past, but he doesn't bring up the whole I was in the wrong body part. So, but other than that, I didn't really know anyone here. So I got to my apartment, I unpacked my car, unpacked my dog, and like I took a photo of all the stuff I had in my car sitting in my apartment. I'm like, how did I fit all this in there? It was a surprising amount of stuff. And even when I moved to this place in Lacey, I'm like, I wound up needing like a few carloads of people to help. I'm like, I just moved here a few months ago. How do I have enough stuff to fill up multiple vehicles because all I had really bought when I moved here was a desk and a bed and a nightstand. And then I traded a photography gig for an air conditioner because yes, you still do need air conditioners in Washington. It's just not very often, but just during the day. At night, summers in Washington are the best. So again, I'm bouncing all over. During the day, it can get up to, mid 90s. It gets pretty warm, but it's not humid here, or at least nowhere near as humid as it was in Ohio. But at night, it drops down to late 40s and 50s every night, even in the summer. So you can just open the windows and it's glorious. You don't have, I remember back in Ohio, at nighttime would come along. If it was 100 degrees during the day, it'd be 95 overnight, and it just never cooled off. And it's not the case here. So yeah, unpacked all my stuff, and I'm like, I live here now. I don't know anybody. This is absolutely terrifying. If you know me, I'm a hardcore introvert. I'm extremely autistic. I'm not someone that goes out and meets people. The few times I've tried have just been horrible experiences. And so for the first few weeks, I was actually looking forward to going to work. I work in a town called Shelton, which is, for me here in Lacey, it's a 39-minute drive to the northwest. It's up on the peninsula. And then part of what I get to do there, it's going away. I'm not going to be doing it much longer, but I would go and visit all branches of the credit union where I work. And so every week I drive up the peninsula and go across the Hood Canal Bridge and see the Olympic Mountains. And it's just the best thing ever. So, because I can see all the beauty, which is one of the reasons I moved here. But yeah, I was actually looking forward to go to work for the first few weeks because that's the only social interaction I had until I started meeting some neighbors. I had some great neighbors at the apartment complex I was in Tumwater. Wonderful neighbors. The apartment complex itself sucked. It was a nightmare. Way overpriced. I was spending $1,405 a month on a little studio that was maybe 300 square feet, had no AC, didn't have a microwave, didn't have a dishwasher, didn't have a garbage disposal. And one of the buildings burned down. My building flooded. Power was always on and off. And it was just an unpleasant place to live. That's why I moved in with my friend, and I live in a nice house with a room and climate control and power and water. But I started trying to meet people. I went on Reddit, went on Facebook groups, stuff like that. One of the first things I did was try to find a Dungeons and Dragons group because a little over a year ago, I started playing D&D back in Ohio. I really enjoyed it. I was having trouble finding a group here because I didn't want to be around anti-Trumpers, period. I don't want to be around conservatives. Like, that's all I was around all the time in Ohio. And I knew living here, there's a lot more leftists and just progressive people in general. So that's who I choose to surround myself with. So yeah, I couldn't find a group, so I formed my own, and now the DM of my own D&D group that I formed like 3 or 4 weeks after I moved here. And so we meet every Monday, and my group is flexible. So like if people can't make it every week, I can still continue the game. Only time the game doesn't continue is if I'm off one week or another. And went on to dating apps, stuff like that. Find more than friends, but so far I found friends. I met an amazing person named Charlie, who is one of my absolute favorite human beings on the face of the earth. And I met them on her. We went and had coffee, and they are also very neurodivergent. And it's nice to I will just go and hang out with them, and we can just let our brains just unleash whatever is going on in there. And there's no judgment because we both get it. And that's such a rare thing to have anywhere. So, meeting Charlie was a major boon for my mental health here, tell you that much, because I still have mental health struggles. I'm not going to say I haven't had suicidal ideation since I moved here. Because a lot of political stuff is hard for anyone to bear, especially people in the trans community. Like a government shutdown being blamed by the president of the United States on us. Like, come the fuck on, leave us alone. I wasn't going to get into politics. Center yourself, Vanessa. Okay. And yeah, so I would say, like, I've established myself here. This is my home. I'm starting to slowly build up a clientele of photography clients, both real estate and non-real estate. I have a few absolutely wonderful real estate photography clients. And when I moved here, my pricing for that was way lower than anyone else. I've actually raised it a little bit. It's still lower, I think, than other photographers. But one thing in Ohio I could charge more for, actually, were portrait work. But here, I'm living in Olympia. There's so many artists and so many photographers. So everyone's trying to compete for the work. So that sort of photography, like portrait and creative photography, pricing is pretty low. To the point where in Ohio, I could charge $250 for 2 headshots. That's what I paid for two headshots as well once. And here, $50 I could barely get. So I'm really focusing more on real estate photography here. Real estate here is hard. And there are a lot of agents, but houses aren't for sale everywhere like they were in Ohio. And the house prices are extremely high. So the pool of buyers are smaller as well. Like, say the house I live in right now, it's probably 1,800 square feet. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a half bath. In Ohio, this house would be, I don't know, $250,000 maybe. There's no basement, but here this house probably will sell for $600,000-$700,000. So there's a huge difference in pricing. Just means the real estate photographers that are here have been pretty ingrained since there's not as much work. They have their loyal client base, and they offer stuff that I may not be able to offer. Like, I can do interior video and stuff like that, but it's not my strength. My strength is photography. So my bread and butter are agents that are looking for photography, be it aerial photography, which I am a licensed drone pilot. So I do packages which are aerial photography, then interior photography, and then I do a floor plan. And that's all you need when you're selling a house. All the other stuff is fluff, but that's just me, so obviously. So yeah, I'm slowly building up some clients here. But where I was getting with that is agents don't get as many listings here as they did in Ohio. Now, I mean, the 2.5% of a $600,000 house is way more than 2.5% of a $90,000 house, which was what a lot of agents in Ohio were selling. So they are getting more money, but the cost of living here is a lot higher. So I guess I should get into things I've learned about Washington since moving here. Number one, one of the quickest things I had to learn is crosswalks here are taken very seriously. In Ohio, my ex-wife is from Russia, and I remember her talking about crosswalks in Russia where, like, it's cross at your own risk. You're taking your life into your hands if you're crossing the road there. And Ohio was kind of similar. Like, people, if you're at a crosswalk, you need to wait until all the cars are gone before you dare crossing, and then you still better look because someone will come out of nowhere and kill you. Here, crosswalks are taken fucking seriously. Like, cars come to a complete dead stop, and crosswalks have flashing lights and stuff like that. And it is all about the pedestrian, which I like. I just was not expecting it. And so there may have been a couple times where I might have almost bopped a pedestrian with my little Fiat until I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to stop. So yeah, that was a big adjustment for me, being able, because I was used to just barreling around wherever I wanted back in Ohio because, no one gave a shit about life there. People actually care about life here, apparently. Roundabouts are popular here. They were in Ohio as well. They're utilized much more frequently here. And if you know me, I love a good roundabout. I'm the girl who watched the Mythbusters episode where they wanted to test and see how much more efficient roundabouts are than four-way stops, and they're so much more efficient. But again, Washington drivers suck, so if you're driving here, keep your eyes out, because someone will just drive right into you if they're a little bit confused about what they're supposed to be doing in roundabouts. Which, on the other hand, is also fair, because some of the instructions for how you're supposed to enter and exit them are not always very clear. Let's see, prices here are mind-bogglingly high. Though I found grocery store prices are actually a little bit lower than they were in Ohio. So if you go buy your own groceries and do your own cooking, now groceries in this country are stupid expensive, period, no matter where you go. Like, 2 bags of groceries should not cost $70. I'm sorry, but that's just, ugh. But eating out is a lot more expensive. Minimum wage here is something like $16 an hour. And servers make minimum wage here. They don't make the stupid $2.13 an hour that they make other places in the country. I remember making that almost a quarter century ago when I waited tables, and it's still what it is in a lot of places now, including Ohio. So servers here, actually, I wouldn't say it's a living wage so much, because it's so expensive to live here. For context, my job pays $24 an hour. And so that's about $49,000 a year. So that was not enough money to cover my rent and car payment and just a little bit of credit cards and some child support. So pretty much just your average person's expenses. I was operating at about a $500 a month deficit until I was able to move in with my friend here. So it's expensive. Gas is super high. Often in the mid fours, sometimes over $5 a gallon. I've become used to it now, but I remember the first time I filled up here, I was like, oh, this is going to suck. Because my car does prefer premium gas, which I kind of bounce back and forth. You can save money here if you're planning on moving here by checking out the gas stations on the reservations. A lot of the tribes here have little spots where you can get their pricing on gas, which is considerably lower. Usually 60, 70, 80 cents a gallon less. And there just happens to be, they call them trading posts. There happens to be a trading post on my way to work, so I can just pop off, get gas, and then pop back on the highway. And that gas, say where I'm in Lacey, gas will be $4.80. It'll be $3.90 there. So it's still super expensive, but every little bit counts, especially since I'm driving 1,400 miles a month. I fill up my car every 4 work days. So yeah, it's every little bit helps to save there. The people here you hear about the Seattle freeze, and that's not the case in the South Sound, Olympia, even up onto the peninsula. Seattle's its own kind of thing, I've learned. I've come to understand that people in Seattle don't want to hang out with people outside of Seattle, especially don't want to date people outside of Seattle. Now, that's not a complete blanket term. It's a trend that I found. So that's why dating here has been so hard, because there's just less people here than there are in Seattle. And I'm primarily attracted to cisgender lesbians. And, well, sapphics don't have to be lesbians. They just have to be attracted to women. But then the number of people like that are attracted to someone like me is small. So dating here has been lonely and unsuccessful. I'm on the apps here. Like, people are everywhere, and like everywhere else in the country, the apps are trash. So I could probably meet more people if I actually got out of the house, but that's terrifying. I tried that the other day. I got dressed up all cute. I wore like this like spider web dress that I got with like a mesh top and fishnets, like patterned fishnets and stuff. I look fucking adorable. And I went to a place where I know lesbians hang out. It was actually on Dyke Night. And I just sat there at a table, awkward, hanging out with a bunch of gay guys and a roommate who's a trans woman. So yeah, I have to find other ways to meet people, which probably will involve in people introducing me. I photographed a wedding and fell for a girl there. And we went on a couple dates. Very nice. Not compatible. I My communication needs are higher, and I respect that. So, um, I've given up being poly here. I tried poly towards the end of my tenure in Ohio because my girlfriend was poly, and I just can't do it. Especially like my former girlfriend's other partner was a guy, and so I felt a little bit less competition, but I still had jealousy that I couldn't get over it, and that's just not healthy and it's not fair. Um, and so I have left the poly lifestyle behind me. Downside is a lot of people here are poly, so that thins the dating pool even more. Um, but let me talk about just here. I can leave the house. I can go to the grocery store. Nobody gives a shit. I'm not getting dirty looks. I'm not getting a hard time going into the bathroom. I'm just another girl out buying groceries, and people mind their business for the most part. Conservatives here are far less MAGA. I mean, you still have MAGA, don't get me wrong, but at least far less outwardly MAGA. If anything, they're a little bit more libertarian. And even then, like, I'll have a conservative guy, even wearing a fucking MAGA hat, like, open a door for me and say, man, it's just different. The people here are just nicer. Surrounded by beauty, as I said, everywhere I go, it's just fucking gorgeous. I love when the mountain is out. Like, I'll come home from work and there's this little time coming off the 101 onto 5, and there's a place where the mountain will peak up and back down. And when I do real estate photography, I'm always trying to get the mountain in one of the shots for the drone shots if it's out. And something about it just makes me happy. Every time I see it, I'm like, this is where I belong. I realized after I moved here, like, I'd always known that Ohio wasn't home, and it always felt wrong to me. But it took actually not just visiting, because I hadn't visited Washington since 2007. Yeah, 2007. So I was visiting a former girlfriend in Seattle. And that was the last time, the last time. I'd only been to Washington total 2 times before I moved here. First time was around 1996, and then 2007. I forget where I was going with that, but I've always known that I belonged out west, and the Pacific Northwest is just a whole different level of beauty because there's woods. It's alpine. There's woods everywhere. You go a little bit, you're in the high desert. And I can't, for someone from a more boring, drab place in the country, it's hard to explain what it's like to just constantly be living in the midst of all of this, I call it paradise, and living on stolen land. That's also a big thing here, which I appreciate. The indigenous population is far more present. In Ohio, the indigenous population was gone, other than how we name things like Cuyahoga and Manaway, stuff like that. But the people themselves were pretty much gone. Here, there's tribal communities, and those of us that care realize that we are living on stolen land. And there's a big push here for preservation. The state focuses a lot. There's a Department of Ecology and a Department of Natural Resources here. And if Ohio has either one of those, they sure don't do much because the land in Ohio just gets sold to the lowest bidder at that. It's not the case here. Things are taken care of. And my brain just died there for a second. It happens a lot. Brain's farting and going all over, and but I hope this is actually okay, this is recording. Okay, good. I'm like, did I actually hit record? But yeah. says I've been talking for 49 minutes and 55 seconds. Um, it's gorgeous here. The people are nicer. I feel safe. I can leave the house and just go. I just go places, and I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder. It's a lot like being in Canada. Um, I came out in November, and I came out in October of 21. Started hormones on November 4th of 2021, and then summer of 22, my ex and I went to Canada. And one of the first things I noticed when I was in Canada, as after being in the US, specifically a red state like Ohio, where anywhere I went, I felt unsafe. In Canada, no one gave a flying fuck. Like, oh, that's just another person. You know, Washington's very much like that. Now, not all of Washington's blue. It's like so many other places in this country. There's your blue hubs, and then the rural areas are mostly red. But I just don't go to the rural areas for the most part. I don't really have a reason to. And even the times I haven't had troubles. I work in a fairly red town. And I go to post office there every day and no one gives a fuck. So it's just so intensely different here and better than where I came from. I didn't realize how much trauma I was dealing with on a daily basis just trying to exist when I was back in Ohio. And I don't have that here. Here I'm just another person in the crowd, which just feels nice. I realize I urge anybody who can to come here, or to a safe state like this, like Washington, Oregon, Colorado, whatever. I know it's hard and expensive, and I am privileged in that I've built up enough of a community. I don't have a huge following. Like, this show has 90 listeners, 100 listeners. I have a couple hundred YouTube subscribers, but my voice has mattered to enough people that when I've reached out for help, people have answered the call. And so I understand that's not the case for everybody. But if you can find a way and you have interest in doing it, do it. Get out of where you are. No place in this country is good for the trans community, period. There are places that are better than others. This area of Washington, Olympia specifically, is a transgender sanctuary city. And that's why I live nearby. My ultimate goal is I would like to actually live in Olympia proper. The cards haven't fallen that way yet. I need a job that pays a whole lot more. I am job hunting heavily right now for a number of reasons that I really can't get into. But I would ideally like to have a place in Olympia. The neighborhoods in Olympia are so fucking cute. Like, these adorable little houses, and it's just so queer. Everywhere you go is queer. I photographed a wedding, as I said, at a house in Ole, like northeast of town, and it's just so fucking adorable. It's hard to really express into words how much better it is here. Do I still have a terrifying fear of the federal government coming and doing something absolutely horrible? Yes. But I feel way more confident that I'll be able to ride this shitstorm out here than I would have been able to in Ohio. I mean, with the amount of ideation I've had in the past, I don't even know if I would still be alive if I lived in Ohio at this point. With the deluge of just anti-trans stuff just being thrown constantly at my community, I don't think I would have been able to handle it anymore. But here, I'm alive. I'm thriving for the most part. Definitely searching for a better career, which I hope I can find soon. I have my first round of facial feminization surgery scheduled for January. I'm terrified that I'm going to lose my job and lose access to the insurance that I'm getting that from. But I'm hoping things work out. My first round will be my upper face from here up. And on January 13th, it's in Arizona. And then the second round, also in Arizona, will be from here down. And the surgery, my reasoning for the surgery, one, of course, dysphoria. Two, it's safety. The better I can pass, the better I can just get through daily life and still have to deal with discrimination that tall women get, but hopefully less than a trans end. No one should have to say that. No one should have to get surgeries. No one should have to medically transition to be who they are. But it's what I'm doing. So, anywho, if you'd like to, if you go on my Instagram, scroll down some, you can see a article I wrote for the Buckeye Flame. I wrote it back in June. I think it got published in August. And it talked about how I'm glad I didn't actually get elected or even get on the ballot in Ohio, because otherwise I would still be stuck there. And I think the best thing that can happen to Ohio is, and red states like that are so gerrymandered, is for leftists to just get out and let the Republicans just burn it to the ground, and then we come back and rebuild. I think it's too far gone at this point to recover from. But I mean, I could also be proven wrong. I don't know if you remember, I was affiliated with a group called Ohio Equal Rights, which I was only with them for a few months last year. And they have actually gotten their initiative off the ground. They had enough signatures to get it on the ballot. Of course, the Republicans came in and demanded that they split it, which they had to do. And then they had enough signatures to get both issues on the ballot. But they are working on not only removing the portion of the Ohio Constitution that says marriage is between just a man and a woman, but also to enshrine human rights for pretty much everything you can think of, like disability status, veteran status, pregnancy status, gender, sex, everything that could be thought of was put on there. And if that gets passed by the people, then Ohio could seriously change. Now, we've also seen that Ohio politicians do not listen to the will of the people. If you look at what's going on with marijuana there, marijuana was legalized in Ohio, but you never know because politicians keep finding ways to walk things back despite the will of the people. And they're not afraid to lie to get their way. Last year, there was an initiative on the ballot to put the drawing of districts into the hands of the people, and the Republican Party just outright lied with all of their marketing around it, saying it would remove choice from the people. But they wanted to be able to keep their crazy gerrymandered districts. Again, I wasn't going to talk about politics in this. It's just kind of hard not to. I mean, it really is. Apologies if you follow me on socials in the past. I have locked down all of my profiles to private for the most part, just for my safety. It's something I suggest anybody in marginalized communities to do, unless you're willing to be doxxed, to be arrested, that kind of stuff. Because I mean, there are some people who are willing and willing to fight. There's people like me, I don't have fight in me. I'm a parent. I don't want to be thrown in jail to go who knows where, go to who knows what camp, whatever might possibly happen in my community. I want to just live a safe, quiet life so my son can grow up and keep having his 2 mops. So I've locked down my socials because of that. Get away with having a blue check. None of that really matters anymore. I do a few public posts on Facebook, but that's mainly just photography stuff, trying to find work. So this is my putting things out there publicly for the few people that watch this show on YouTube or listen to the podcast. This is how you can hear my story, my voice, if what I have to say interests you, which I hope it does. But I still do accept all the requests. I was tired of just constantly removing, especially on threads, because I love threads, but the bots on there are ridiculous. So locking that down to be a private feed was nice. And then I just went through and just deleted until I got tired of just hitting delete. But I had so many just fake followers and bots and stuff on there. But yeah, you're welcome to connect with me on any of those. If you live around Olympia, if you're an adorable, wonderful cisgender lesbian slash pan slash I okay, so I need to address this because people are gonna be like, Vanessa, are you anti-trans in dating? I have something I used to call internalized transphobia because I had heard that phrase before, but I don't think that is the correct phrase for it. I call it projected dysphoria. I have difficulty having romantic relationships with other trans people because my own dysphoria, I project it upon them. And my little lizard brain can't get past that. And that's a me problem. That is not a them problem. That is a 100% me problem. That is on me. But it's just part of how sexuality works. And it's not, I'm not saying I wouldn't date any other trans woman, but I do tend to have a lot of projected dysphoria, and it's not fair. And I could never. It's hard to put it into words without sounding like an asshole, but I am an asshole. I embrace it. It's something that I struggle with. Dysphoria. I struggle with dysphoria of my own constantly, and yeah, it's a personal thing that I need to work on. But it's also the truth, and it's an ugly truth. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's there, and it would not be fair for me to date someone on who I was projecting my own dysphoria onto. So yeah, so when you hear me say that I'm looking for, because fuck, I hate going on the dating apps and you'll see people like cis only, cis only. That's calling yourself out as just being a flat out bigot. Oh, sorry, not sorry. That's just my preference. So it's not all encompassing. It's just what I have found in general. And it's shitty of me. Not gonna lie. One thing I've come to realize about myself is, especially having been in Dungeons and Dragons, playing it and DMing it, I am chaotic neutral. I tend to operate for the good of society, so long as it benefits me. Once that stops happening, I'm not afraid to burn bridges. I am not afraid to do some shady, underhanded shit in order to come back out on top. This is because I've lived a life in which I have been fucked over constantly. In one form or another, I have become so used to disappointment, so used to betrayal, so used to rejection, that I operate expecting to be disappointed so that when things go right, it's actually a pleasant surprise. So if someone has wronged me in one way or another, I'm past the point of forgiveness. I just don't have time for that shit. Like, they're just out of my life. I have a absolute zero tolerance policy for any sort of gaslighting. I had a former D&D member, someone here that I had built up a little bit of a friendship with. I slashed her out of my life because I was being asked to choose between her and someone else. And no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm standing up for myself, which I've never done in the past. I'm doing that at work right now, and it could very well get me fired. But again, I have a zero tolerance for it. I have a zero tolerance for discrimination against my disabilities. And yeah, I'm not afraid to burn bridges. This is who I am, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It's taken 43 years for me to actually learn to stand up for myself. Living with my, uh, I don't want to get into that. But living with so many narcissistic people in my life, having been accused in the past of being a narcissist myself until my autism diagnosis, because frankly, there's a fair amount of overlap between the two sometimes. So, but yeah, if you're someone who used to be on my friends list and you're not anymore, if you're someone I used to follow, if you're someone that used to be on this show or be a guest on this show, or you're not on it anymore, it's because you did something that fucking pissed me off, and I just don't have time. I don't have time for it anymore. So I hope you live your best life. I'm not in it anymore. Boy, tell me one thing. I'm gonna close with this: the stupid Charlie Kirk stuff. I had to let go of someone who was a trusted friend and client back in Ohio because I thought she was a safe person. And but the person that she was starting to laud was someone that was vehemently anti-trans and was toxic for my community and flat out dangerous for my community. I don't support political violence. And all that came from after that and the further attacks on the trans community, it really just showed me there were people in my life that I thought were safe and thought were allies. They weren't. So, yeah. Here we are, a little bit over an hour. Felt good to record another episode. I need to find a guest. Have some of my old style episodes again, like bringing people on, like when people ask me, when they learn I have a podcast, like, you have a podcast? I'm like, yeah, I do. Everyone has a podcast, right? But they're like, what are your favorite episodes? So I try to point them towards ones like the episode on religion where her quote, too queer to be Christian, but too Christian to be queer, was just, ooh, that's such a powerful quote. As someone that grew up in a super religious family. Shit, I don't remember what episode that is, 46? Something like that. And I love pointing people towards episode 42, which is the episode in which I interviewed Cecile Ferrando, who did my vaginoplasty. I was able to interview her because she was no longer my doctor after she moved to San Diego. And for my trans fam who are curious about bottom surgery, the reason I created that episode is for people to actually hear what goes into the procedures, the ins, outs, ups and downs from someone who actually performs those surgeries, rather than going to Reddit and trying to do your research there. So I love pointing people towards that episode. I really, I'm not a person who wants to be internet famous, but that episode in particular, I really wish had more viewers. If you're listening to this and you are interested in the medical side of transitioning, for those that choose to transition medically, tell people about that episode. And it's very interesting. And Dr. Ferrando was just an amazing person to do that. And for favorite episodes, I like to talk about episode 25 with Landon Reed, and I think it's episode 54 with Landon and Alex. Alex, I'm sorry, I suck with your last name, Cassio. I know I'm the worst. But yeah, that's a great one. And just there's so many other episodes of this show that, like, if this is your first time listening, go back and listen to some of them. This show started off as a group project between myself and a bunch of LinkedIn connections. I wasn't even the host on a lot of the early episodes. I was the producer working in the background. But with all things, when you have a group of adults together and we all have different schedules, we all have different jobs, and we are all in different places of the country and the world, and I decided to just kind of take the show over and make it my own for perhaps to his detriment, because this show for a while was a weekly show, which was fucking exhausting. And now here it is October, and my last episode was 5 months ago. But this is kind of how I roll now, where I just kind of put them out as I feel, well, at times that I feel appropriate to do it. But yeah, listen to my back content, and there's some really interesting stuff. There's anything from traveling to parenting. I have copywriters, I have authors, I have artists. I have a YouTuber on there that I enjoyed listening to, Klaus von Hohenlohe. He's so fun, so adorable. Yeah. So if this is your first time here, if you've made it this far, which one, I mean, generally it doesn't happen that much when I look at the viewer metrics and stuff like that. But hey, here we are. Thank you for listening to me ramble for the past hour and 11 minutes, pretty much. No idea when the next one will be. Maybe I'll have a guest next time. But yeah, be safe out there, and remember what I said about me. Don't be afraid to burn bridges. Like, your mental health is your own, and if there's people out there that are just making your life worse, ask yourself seriously. Sit back and ask yourself, is it necessary for these people to be in my life? So I can tell you one thing in the trans community, one thing that is a very common denominator is the trans community, just like every other community, we're not all the same, and no, we don't all know each other. There's trans people that I love. There's trans people I can't fucking stand. I'm one of the trans people that a lot of people can't fucking stand because I am an asshole. But I embrace it. But build your own community. You make your own family. Blood does not make family. Family is a title that is earned. It is one of mutual respect and understanding and love. I've built my own family. I have a small circle of friends that I consider family, and I do love them. And I will tell them that. And yeah, protect yourselves, please. We're living in a terrifying time right now. I know not all of my listeners are trans, which I love. I love that I have allies and just people just curious about the trans experience listening to this show. And I try not to make the show all about trans, even though it used to be called Transcending Humanity, which was a good name. It really was. Okay, who came up with that? Was that Liam that came up with it? I don't remember. But I just thought the Vanesstradiol podcast just kind of fit my brand a little bit better. So I do everything as Vanesstradiol. Anyways, I'm all over the place. Thank you for listening. Have a day. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be bad. Just have a day. Bye.